with the release of Marvel Rivals Season 4, there has been tons of buffs, nerfs, and changes to the meta overall. That's why in this video, we're going to be breaking down the best and worst tanks, DPS, and supports in this 4.0 tier list, so you'll know exactly how your main stacks up in the meta. But before we begin, I need you to check out the Marvel Rivals Academy. If you want to improve and hit Grandmaster, Celestial, Eternity, or even one above all, the Rivals Academy has everything that you need to quickly get better. We have Coach Scrims, consistent coaching classes, community where you'll find amazing duo partners, and even in-house tournaments that we run consistently. There's a ton of ways to take Rivals and your skill to the next level, and the first month is completely free, so try it risk-free in the links down below. Now, the first characters that we got to talk about are the tanks, because all metas are built and based around tanking as a whole. They are the characters that you take space with and execute a game plan through, so what tanks are the best typically dictate what is the best for everything else. Now, that being said, there are no F and D tier tanks because all the tanks are reasonable, and honestly, in most cases, there is a shortage of tanks. Having less than 2 tanks on a team actually dramatically reduces your chance of winning a game, and having no tanks means you're basically gonna lose no matter what. So, with that in mind, let's talk about the C tier tanks, and both of these tanks are actually very powerful in the right situation. But that's just what it is. They're situational tanks, meaning that they are situationally good or bad, and it's hard to put them high up on the tier list when you're talking about overall pick rate and overall power level. And the first character on that list is actually Angela. And I know that Angela is the new chick on the block, so she's a little bit harder to evaluate than the other characters because we haven't had a lot of time with her. But the reality of Angela is that she's an extremely polarizing and map-based hero. Her primary ability is her capability to displace enemies, and if you're on a map where you could take people off the map, that could be a legitimate free kill, which is extremely powerful. But on a map where you can't take someone off the map, you're only taking them just a little bit away from their team, and that isolation is going to get more or less value, kind of depending on who you're doing it against. Some characters with hypermobility, they're going to be able to play around this very, very easily, and you could be kidnapping Psylocke all day, and it's not going to get any definitive value. But other characters with less mobility, characters that you can just displace and typically end up in a free kill if you have some other sort of follow-up, that can be really powerful. So she's not only very composition-based, but she's also very map-dependent, and she just doesn't really have the capability of being a main tank as well. You can basically never solo tank with her, and in some cases, even playing her as your third tank is most optimal. Now, once again, in the spot she's good in, she could be an absolute hard carry, but once again, she isn't the most flexible tank, and it's rather narrow compared to other characters, exactly what situations she's going to shine in. You compare it with a character like Magneto, for example, that can be basically played in almost any situation, and you really see the difference. Now, the other one in C tier that it's a bit weird putting her here because I think she's legitimately very strong in a similar way to Angela in her spots, it's Peni. And Peni has spots where she's legitimately insane and other spots where she's not so great. And I do understand that she did get a buff in this season where now her ultimate is quite a bit better. And I also understand that this character is very highly picked in low elo and also has a really disproportionately high pick rate on console play. These things are all true, but it doesn't change the fact that Peni specifically is not really that great on attack. Like, yeah, you can play Peni on attack, but in general, Peni is going to get so much more value on defense. It's crazy. This character might be a, 60, 75% win rate on defense. And then on attack, the character loses 10, 15, 20% of that win rate because the character just doesn't have the tools to take space in the way other tanks can. Like, yes, you can flank, and yes, you can set up traps that supports can walk back into and you get value, but you just get that for free when you're on defense versus having to do this crazy setup that may or may not get value. And something else about Peni is that the less coordinated players are, the better and better you are. You really just benefit a lot from the chaotic nature of ranked, the fact that players don't peel, players aren't aware of you. If players coordinated together and got you out of their backline or coordinated together to destroy your generators, all of a sudden your value really diminishes, but players just don't do that in ranked. It's one of the many reasons why Peni sees a ton of play in ranked play, but almost no pro play. And she probably won't. I just can't imagine in her current state she ever sees definitive pro play. Besides, putting all your mines at a spawn and then Doctor Strange portaling someone into it and they just blow up instantly. Like gimmicky stuff like that, sure. For the most part, no. Now, this isn't to say that this character is bad, because I think this character is extremely good, and she has great matchups against some of the best characters in the game, like Magik, for instance, and she's super good against almost any melee character in the game. Any character that wants to get in close, she's really good against. She's really good against dive, and if players don't swap, don't counter you, or don't work together, you win the game against them for free, and you also have the highest % chance of holding on first in a situation where you need to stop them from getting even a single tick, or you just want to use it on a first point choke point on defense and then swap off. She's amazingly powerful. So I don't want you to sleep on this character. I think she requires players to swap and adapt to her more than almost any other character in the game, but she's not very flexible in how she plays. She does one thing very, very well, and if that doesn't work, then you might want to swap off. Now let's move on to the B tier. These are characters that I think are just really good in some situations, but there are more objectively powerful and flexible characters above them, but in their sub-niches, they really shine, or in the hands of someone really skilled, they shine. So first off is the Thing. I have the Thing at the bottom of B tier because the Thing, while he is really, really strong in his spots, we're starting to see him lag behind in the spots that he's not shining in. Like, yes, he can brawl frontline double shield. Yes, he's good against dive and he can crowd control them down. But outside of those situations, he does flounder a bit because he's not great against poke. He can get shredded by long distance damage dealers without a really consistent way to contest them. In addition to those things, he doesn't have great ways to defend himself and typically needs to be played with another person that can kind of take up the mitigation for the team. Like Thing Mag works really well, but for most other tanks to synergize with the Thing, not so much. I think Thing Emma is okay, but really when you're playing the Thing, you're typically using him to be some sort of DPS hypermobility counter. And while this is super strong, don't get me wrong, there are so many ways to deal with hypermobility and dive that don't require the Thing that you would most likely rather play just a more powerful character and then just swap up your comp to deal with dive instead of making it so that you have to give up a really powerful tank for the Thing to stop a dive. I think the Thing mostly could be a great tool that you can swap to when no one else is dealing with the problems, the dive problems. But a lot of times it feels like you're swapping to a worse pick just to deal with a problem that someone else on your team could deal with. Some other piece of crowd control, triple support, or just something else can deal with the problems better, and you giving up your entire attention to just try to mitigate is not really the best use of a tank's time when tanks can do so much more than that. And I'm not saying Thing can't do more than that. I'm just saying that you almost are always feeling like you're backdoored into playing Thing, and then you're not able to do all the great powerful things like swing on the front line. So he's just in this weird space right now where I just don't feel like he really stacks up that well against the best tanks in the game, and he's really only useful for being like an anti-meta pick or an anti-dive pick, and I think that's a fine place for him, but he's not shining as much as he once did in previous metas. Now, next up in the B tier, I actually have Thor, which is a character that has been historically one of the worst tanks in the game, even though he's been reasonably powerful in low elo, reasonably powerful in solo queue. I think he can solo carry a lot, and the character is still great at taking duels, taking 1v1s, contesting isolated targets. These are all still part of Thor's kit, but there's a couple of big changes, and the big one comes from his ultimate being able to be faster and then stunning targets. So what this really does is it allows Thor to just be more consistent with hitting ults, but more importantly than that, it makes people actually fear Thor ult, because that's really the ultimate problem before. Is if you had, let's just say, two supports together, if they knew that they weren't going to die to the Thor ult, which they really wouldn't because it doesn't do that much damage, they sometimes didn't even feel like they had to pop their defensive ults. So now Thor always will force a defensive ult with his ultimate. If you fly over someone, bubble them, so if they walk out, they get slowed and take damage, and pop your ultimate. If they don't have a defensive ultimate, they will pop it every single time because they can't risk getting stunned. Like, the fear of the stun is really, really strong. It also sets up for a lot of situations where your team can focus fire and kill through a defensive ult. But really, once again, the main weakness that Thor has is his survivability when players are hyper-optimized and all playing meta. When there's a lot of crowd control, a lot of focus fire, characters that can stun you like Jean seeing play, Hela stuns, and just pretty much so many stuns. Supports have stuns, DPS has stuns. If you ever try to make an aggressive play and get stunned by 2 people like Luna Freeze into Phoenix stun, you're just dead. Like every single time, you're just dead. So the character does struggle as people start to play more hyper meta. But until then, I think the character just really gets to kind of do whatever he wants and has so much impact. But when people start to play hyper meta, triple support, freaking stuns, broken DPS like Phoenix, or really strong DPS like Phoenix, and then, you know, just so much powerful utility that can stun you over and over again, it can be frustrating to play this character. But on the plus side, the grounding aspect of your circle, of your realm to ground torches, Ultrons, Iron Man, and even Angela's, it's actually really strong. Like, it's actually pretty powerful, and it can create free kill opportunities where people just fall to the ground and they can't do anything about you. And it also is nice that you can win a 1v1 against almost every DPS in the game, so this really helps against characters that actively want to always try to duel with you, characters like Magik, characters like Ironfist. In a true isolated 1v1, you can just straight up win it, which is cool. Now, last up in the B tier, we have Captain America, which did receive a damage nerf, which did hurt him a bit, but I don't want you to think that this character is unplayable, because this character's not. He's actually still really strong. He still stalls cart really, really well. He still harasses supports in the back line. He's still super, super survivable, and that constant pressure, the constant of forcing supports to heal each other, or the constant of forced attention that he can create is still really good. He's still one of the best dive enablers in the game, where he can just constantly bait out attention and clear the way utility-wise for like a Black Panther, for instance. And he also just plays well in a non-dive comp, just being someone that constantly forces out resources and pressures enemies when they are also being pressured on the front line. You know, diving the back line Luna at the same time the front line is being really heavily pressured, puts a lot of really hard decisions on the Luna, and that's really, really good. And Cap's one of the few characters that can do that for like extended periods of time and not also die. There's a lot of characters that they could do it for a little bit, but then they will die if they don't leave right away. Cap is just not the case, and also his ultimate is really, really strong, allowing your team to survive, being like a pseudo defensible, making it so Cap can just be almost unkillable against certain compositions. There's a lot to love about Cap, but he's definitely a bit weaker than he was before in patch 3.5, and I do think overall he is feeling that small change, but it's not enough to knock him down too far. Now, we're moving up to the A tier, and the A tier is honestly pretty stacked. I think at the bottom of A tier, it's a bit hard to say, but I'm going to put Hulk at the bottom of A tier. Hulk pretty much does insane against so many different things, especially with that Namor team up. You're just generally good against nonsense. I think it's one of the most powerful duos to play against everything but hard meta. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that hard meta is in a second. But Namor, good against dive, good also being aggressive in an off angle. Hulk can be all over the place. He can peel, he can dive, he can brawl, he can make plays. Like, he just gets to do a little bit of everything. And the pressure of Hulk being disruptive and applying pressure where surgically kind of where he wants to, and then Namor just being able to double squid, right click a support and kill them on a flank very, very quickly is just an immense amount of pressure. And really, the only reason that Hulk isn't higher is because Hulk starts to really suffer when people start to play truly hard meta things. Triple support anything is really frustrating for Hulk and Namor to play against. Distance pokers like Phoenix especially, really frustrating to play against because they can destroy the squids, they can stabilize a lot easier, so you're never going to put them on the back foot because they have more tools to kind of stabilize your all-in aggression, so you're not going to be able to like catch them off guard nearly as much. They can burst you down, they can over or heal through your damage. So when players are playing like as an example, a Mag Emma triple support with a Jean, you feel useless. Like, you actually just feel like you can't do anything. Can't kill a support, can't even catch them off guard, can never kill a Jean, too much mobility. The front line is basically untouchable for you. They have too many defensive tools. But when opponents are playing something like triple DPS, which happens all the time, you're just going to destroy them all. Like, they can't do anything against you. And I think Hulk Namor is kind of like that gatekeeper for high elo play. When people in high elo are playing hyper optimized compositions, Hulk Namor doesn't feel that great. But in every other situation, now all of a sudden this guy's an absolute raid boss. And I think he really separates almost. This duo as a whole separates like high level play from like optimized, like almost pro emulation play is really what it's doing. So in most ranks, 99% of ranks, I think Hulk, Namor, S tier duo, but at the very, very highest elo, probably only like A or B tier. Now, a character that I actually have a bit above Hulk, and in my opinion is part of the most powerful composition in the game, is Venom. And I'm actually going to have a meta-analysis video coming soon that you can smash that subscribe so you can look out for that. But a little spoiler to that is one of the most powerful compositions, and in my opinion, probably the most powerful composition, is actually a Venom Jeff triple support comp. And the reason that it's so strong is that the Jeff Venom team up is actually insane. It's like almost a mini soul bond. And when you combine that with characters like Luna and Adam that also have a really powerful team up, and then you just have soul bond into another soul bond into a Luna using her synergy to gain health. And then you have all kinds of really powerful combos like Venom diving in and getting bubbled, Star-Lord getting bubbled by the Jeff and spinning in with a Magneto bubble. You got Venom ult with Luna damage boost. You get to just play from like all these weird attack angles and force out cooldowns and then re-engage like on a dime. Jeff can also heal you from just really weird setups and weird angles as well. And Venom just plays really well into all those things, but he gets a bit worse in the chaotic nature of ranked. Like when you have all of these proper resources and a team that is kind of centered around you and they understand what you're accomplishing, it's cool. But in ranked, when you dive in and you force like 3 people to look at you, you bait out 2 freezes, 2 stuns, a heal, a pocket, and all this attention, then you get out safely, and your team is like eating glue on the front line, you're like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna swap off of this character. Because he has a hard time getting value himself, or rather, the value he gets himself isn't just like tangible kills. Like when Emma grabs someone and kicks them into a wall and kills them, that's just like, oh, okay, she got someone out of position, she killed them right away, it's really obvious. When Venom baits out so many cooldowns and so much attention, you're actually getting a nutty amount of value, but it's not showing up on the scoreboard. And it doesn't really matter if that Venom is like 5 and 5, he could be doing so freaking much. And that's the important part here. I think Venom is a perfect character to fit into a more coordinated strategy with a duo partner or a trio partner. But as a solo carry character, he can be a bit rough. And I do also think that when played perfectly, he's part of one of the best compositions in the game. And for all these reasons, I have to put him in the A tier out of pure respect. But I do understand the frustrations that can come with this character when you're trying to make him work and you don't have a lot of follow-up. You're baiting out all these cooldowns and no one's going to help you. And there's all this crazy amount of crowd control that your team doesn't want to really ban, but you're just going to get hit by it anyway, like Namor, Bucky, Emma Stun, and it could just feel like a nightmare. Now, next in the A tier, a character that's a massive winner this season is Doctor Freaking Strange. This character was almost S tier, guys. That's how strong he is. Because Doctor Strange now, on 6 seconds for his Maelstrom of Madness, you have just a lot of consistent damage, a lot of consistent uptime. You're almost never going to anti yourself. You're always going to be able to pressure that front line, trade damage fairly and pretty evenly on the front line. And you're going to build up ultimates so goddamn fast. So Strange just gets to be this constant damage dealer and build up ultimates that can just literally carry fights all by themselves. He already has a portal, which meant that he was one of the most important characters for everyone to learn, regardless of who you main in general, because it doesn't matter if you're a DPS, a support, or whoever, you do need to port back if you're the first one dead. So everyone should know how to play Strange, get back to point on Strange, maybe get an ultimate on Strange, because if you swap, you have 50%, you could easily build an ultimate in the next 15 seconds and then carry the fight with the Strange ult. So there's a lot of potential to win games you just otherwise wouldn't if you learn how to play Strange. He's actually just pretty good against almost everything. You're not going to get walled off by a Groot. You're pretty versatile in the fact that you can take high grounds and you can contest flyers even. And you also hold 2 powerful synergies in Witch and Magik. Specifically, Magik gets insane in the right hands with this team up. And I think Strange and Magik together are just so freaking good right now that it's one of the most powerful duos that you can run. And it's one of the benefits of being someone that plays a lot of Strange, because you just get to enable Magics that much more. The last up in the A tier, I have to mention Groot, and there are some downsides about Groot right now. And Let's talk about them first. I think he's not particularly great against flyers. He's also a character that can be pretty frustrating to play when there's a lot of players that want to move you out of position. Characters like Thor, characters like Angela, and he's also a pretty greedy character that needs triple heals most of the time to be at his best. Like, if he gets to trade tons of damage with the enemy and then get it healed up, he can really hard carry. But when you're playing 2-2, especially if you have one support that's just not able to pump you full of heals as much, it can feel really rough playing this character. Luckily, his range does help him play it a little bit more at a distance and value your life a little bit more. And then I think the worst part about this season playing Groot is that Wolverine is actually making it through the ban phase a little bit more than he probably should. So that is definitely something that you got to look out for. But when Groot is perfectly enabled, this character carries almost harder than anyone else. If you're up against triple tank and you have 3 supports and a Groot, you could body that comp because you trade damage at such a favorable rate. You don't know what to do against 3 supports. Groot is the ultimate decider, the ultimate stabilizer against any comp, but triple support especially, because you get to go up and over. Like, a Groot that just doesn't die and gets to constantly trade damage builds ultimate faster than just about any character in the game, and if you combo this with any other ultimate, you can kill through every defensible. So it's so strong to just have a character that gets to be that big bad over the top character that can make the entire game about him. And if you're properly enabled, you can just like basically Thanos a lobby. That's just what Groot gets to do, and it's so freaking strong. But there are enough situations where he's frustrating to play and hard to get to work that I will not put him anywhere higher than this. And I think his placement in A tier is debatably bottom of A, top of A. You could probably move him around. I'm not entirely sure. I think Strange is probably a much safer top A pick, but I do think that Groot is, in his spots, an absolute hard carry, probably the hardest carry tank in the game. But sometimes he's just kind of, he's okay. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you ask, the S tier has really not changed at all, and even with these massive nerfs, it's probably not going to change. So Emma is still in S tier. Now, I made a small change here where Emma is no longer better than Magneto. I think that Magneto is just going to be all around better than Emma in more flexible compositions, but Emma is still an all-star, even on 18 seconds. She gained 3 seconds on her diamond. That is a big nerf, but it doesn't make Emma terrible. It does make Emma a little bit worse, especially if you could bait out Diamond. But one of the things that Emma does that gets so much value is it's not about her using it, it's about her threatening to use it. Like, her presence alone forces a certain amount of space and respect. If you're a Strange and an Emma walks at you, you can't wait until she uses Diamond to run away. Because the second she pops Diamond, you're already grabbed, it's already over for you. You're already grabbed and kicked into a wall and shot by the enemy team and killed, right? If you're a Magneto and an Emma walks at you, you cannot wait until she presses Diamond to back up or even bubble, because she Diamonds grabs you, you can't even react to it. And this matters because it's not even the abilities uptime that makes her powerful. It's the threat of using this ability that makes her powerful. In the same way that a Wolverine that is constantly like circling above you on a bridge makes you play like completely different, because you can't react to him engaging you. You can only pre-react. Like, you can only set up or prepare for the engagement, right? It's the same thing with Emma. So yes, she is going to be more powerful in a long fight, a long game where she's using less diamond forms overall, but her core value is still there. That threat of punishment is still there. And I do think that the main nerf to her, even more than the diamond change, is actually the ability for her not to get charge off of shields as much anymore, which really hurts her mostly against double shield. And I actually think that Magneto Strange is a really good team comp again, even in a world where you don't ban Emma. But here's the thing, most of the time you would still rather Emma be banned if you could help it. It's just sometimes you would rather, you know, ban a freaking Torch, and then you would rather ban a Wolverine or ban a Jean or whatever else, right? So it's understandable if you don't, but Emma is still a character that demands your respect, even in spite of her nerfs. I see a lot of people kind of talking about how this character is terrible all of a sudden, when it's just frankly not true. This character was banned at such a high percentage in pro play and this character will consistently still be good in pro play. This character is still one of the best characters in the game. Don't sleep on her, but you don't necessarily have to be so afraid of her like she's the boogeyman anymore. It's just you have to understand what her strengths are and put extra emphasis into baiting out her diamond form, and you can still succeed against her. Now, the last but certainly not least character we got to talk about on this list is, of course, Magneto. Magneto is by far the most flexible all-around tank on this list. And the main reason here that Magneto is so strong, even though most of y'all don't even think of Magneto as like a dominant, unbeatable character, it's mainly because Magneto just has the most powerful defensive tools in the game. He has a shield that cannot break. He has bubbles that he can use on his teammates and himself. He has an ultimate that can be used as a pseudo-defensive / counter ultimate. He has super strong defensive tools. And defensive tools are super strong when you get to force enemies to play at your pace and deny what they're trying to accomplish. Well, you're not necessarily going to be the character that is dominating lobbies by getting 40-0, making the entire game about them. You are consistently mitigating enemy value and enemy pressure. And you're making it harder for every single person on the enemy team to do their job. And you also simultaneously can make every single person on your team do their job easier. You can enable people, you can protect people, you can create space, you can deny space from the enemy, and you fit basically every other tank. Basically, the best other tank with just about every other tank is Magneto. Whether you're playing Emma, it's Magneto. Whether you're playing Strange, it's probably Magneto. Whether Venom, it's Magneto. Guess what? Thing, it's Magneto. Oh yeah, Thor, yeah, it's Magneto. Yeah, it's just always Magneto, okay? Almost always, it's freaking Magneto. And the Magneto is also the best solo tank, and it's not particularly close either. So because of those defensive tools, you need to be able to keep yourself alive. So Magneto's gonna be the best there, and Magneto just kind of further cements himself as the best character, the golden standard in the game, as the best tank in the game, but doesn't ever really feel quite oppressive. So it's an interesting spot for him where he just has a very low ban rate, but he's definitely one of the most powerful characters in the game for sure. Now, we do have to move on to DPS, and there is a lot of changes to the DPS best and worst in the game because there's been a lot of buffs and nerfs, and I think DPS has actually moved quite a bit more than tanks. So let's actually first talk about the F tier, because there actually is a character in F tier, and I'm gonna give it to Squirrel Girl. I know what you're gonna say. You're like, Mills, a Squirrel Girl is still broken, she's still busted, she's still crazy. But here's the thing about Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl got a nerf mainly to her primary, and then also the cooldown on her reset ability, and she got a small compensatory buff to her right click damage or alternate fire damage. But the reality is that Squirrel Girls are just gonna do so much less damage overall. She's really not gonna be able to farm or get free picks in the same way that she was before. And this character that was basically borderline unplayable in high elo now is just simply unplayable in almost every single situation. And even in mid to low elo, I think this character is really just not worth running compared to some freer value you can get on so many other characters. Like, sure, when no one is aiming well, you're gonna get more value than that on a character that doesn't require you to aim, but the legitimate spots to play Squirrel Girl is few and far between. And really, it only comes down to two main scenarios. Number one, the enemy is playing like a all majority tank composition, like 4 tanks or something. You get out a lot of raw damage on this character, and if she's never killed, then you're perfectly fine, sure. And in choke point situations, there's a lot of chokes. There's maybe Peni mines or whatever. She could be okay. I think in a lot of ways, Moon Knight is just the better version of her, but she could be fine. Basically, Squirrel Girl is in this camp that she just wants to be left alone, and then she can give value. Like, if she is never pushed, never pressed, never dueled, never forced into an engagement, she will get tons of value. And if she is constantly being targeted and farmed, then she won't do anything. And it's actually rather easy to focus her and pressure her with any hypermobility character. Tanks can do it as well. And I'm not saying you can't win on this character, because you can. I think you can climb to top 500 with literally any character in this game. But Squirrel Girl falls into this weird category where I think that she is low skill for low reward in a lot of places. There are characters that are strictly better than her, and then as you go up against better players, you're just not going to be able to get consistent value on her. So I got to put her in the F tier. Now, moving up to the D tier, I think most Spider-Man players would agree that this is a really rough season for Spider-Man. The Torch team-up did not do enough for this character to make him reasonable with combos, and honestly, Torch is almost never unbanned anyways. Supports are hard enough to kill, just 2 of them, but triple support is more popular than ever, and good luck killing anything into triple support, especially if Ultron is in the game, which is just one of the most frustrating characters for a Spider-Man player to deal with, because he can bail anyone else out and himself out of any one of your combos. Plus, he can mark you and shoot you midair as you're trying to run away. Well, hey, you want to ban triple support? You want to ban an Ultron? Well, guess what? Now you just have to deal with Bucky Namor just freaking squidding you and stunning you. Like, it's rough. It's rough out there for Spider-Man players. I get it. And it's not looking like Spider-Man is going to be able to succeed in a lot of situations that he did succeed in the past. Now, one plus side to Spider-Man, though, is that he's a very high skill ceiling character. And if you get good enough at this character, you can make him work in situations where you really shouldn't be able to, but you can do it anyways because he has such a high skill ceiling. And players that put on that mask and make him work anyways, I salute you, because I do think that this is a freaking hard time to be a Spider-Man player. You gotta really go above and beyond to make this character work when so many other characters get value for free. Now, moving on to the C tier, we have at the bottom of C tier Ironfist, a character that I think can be okay. He has more spots where he's reasonable than Spider-Man at least, but he really received a massive nerf a little while ago, and he's never gotten buffs to compensate. He's just been stuck into this like place where he can't really go backline very reliably. He has a very hard time against triple support. He has a hard time against so many stuns and so many counters, and just his objective power level is low. Like, yes, you can Thanos a lobby if you play it perfectly and opponents just constantly misplay into you, but the second you get really competent, disciplined enemies that peel for each other, enemies that help each other, you feel like you're never able to get a lot of value during your engages, and then they're getting value while you have downtime. It's like a character that wants to have really these high spikes in value during his initial engages, but he's just not able to. And most of the time, if you're going to care on this character, you kind of just need to be able to beat up on tanks, force support ults out in the neutral, and then steamroll with your ultimate from there. And like I said, it really depends on what the enemy team is playing and how much they're respecting you. But most of the time, it's going to be really, really hard to do unless you're actually very, very skilled at specifically Iron Fist, and you're someone that masters him a lot. Of course, if you do become those things, you can carry on this character. You can absolutely carry, but it's definitely harder to do than many other characters on this list. Now, the next character on this list is Scarlet Witch, and you might be like, Mills, Scarlet Witch has got so many buffs, and she gets to use the Doctor Strange team up more. How was she only in C tier? Well, I legitimately had this character as the worst character in the entire game before these changes, so now she gets moved up, you know, a little bit, and she's fine. Like, she's okay, and this is not a bad thing. I think this character gets a lot of value when players can't aim and in low elos, and she can be played in high elos with disciplined play, and she's actually good against mobility-heavy characters. She could be reasonable as anti-dive, but when players play good characters, she's not great against those characters. If you're up against a Bucky that can aim, a Scarlet that can aim, a Magik that is reasonably good, a Namor Hulk team up, a Hela, a Psylocke, a freaking Phoenix, and a Torch, none of these characters care about Scarlet Witch at all, and most of the time they're gonna bully her. Now, yes, her ultimate is cool, her ultimate is better, but it's still an ultimate that has a massive failure rate, is telegraphed and easy to stun through, even if you get some sort of help. Like, a Magneto bubble is cool and all, but enemies have 2 ways to not get affected by it. If you hide before the bubble comes out, they can just run away. And if you're out in the open and get bubbled to try to pull them in slightly or catch them off guard, they could either break the bubble and stun it, or they could still run away, or whatever. It's just a really hard ultimate to get consistent value from without perfect team setups, and I think it works better the worse your opponents are, and the better your opponents are, the worse and worse it's going to do, especially when so many characters have a way to fade it, dodge it, teleport past it, or run away. It's just really hard to be consistent. I think Scarlet Witch can be good, like I said, in the right situations and in the right elo, but as players start being better and playing better characters, she gets worse and worse and worse. Now, next up, though, is Black Widow, a character that has crazy highs and lows. If you had a consistent Mantis pocket, I'd probably put this character in B tier, because this character does have a lot of potential. One-shots from range, really strong CC, and just if your shots are hitting, like if you're just really hitting every single shot, There's no way for enemies to beat you. You can do jump shot, headshots, do some crazy X-Lex type stuff. You can go nuts on this character. But the reality of this character is that she's inconsistent. She's hard to get consistent value from, and she almost always requires a pocket and a team to play around you. Now, that could be great. That could be really, really good. When you get those things, you could be that Thanos in the lobby, that server admin, and especially on maps with really long sightlines, you can just get so much crazy value. But on the shorter sideline maps or the compositions that you just can't perfectly play around you, or against hypermobility characters like Cap and Psylocke together really blitzing you, it can be a really frustrating time to play this character, and it's pretty feast or famine, I would say. But I do want to make it clear that in the right situations, there's no character in this game that can carry as hard as this character. Like, you're never going to get a character that can literally 1v6 the enemy team, where she walks up, gets a kill, pushes more forward, gets another kill, fight over, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. There's no character that can do that like this character can, but it's just not the most reliable, consistent thing, even for the best players in the world. Although I do want to give extra props to her stun CC, which is one of the strongest crowd control pieces in the DPS roster. Extremely strong piece of utility when used properly. You can even bully a lot of tanks with it. The next up is Mr. Fantastic, a reasonable character all around. However, Mr. Fantastic does suffer from a couple of things. He is a brawl character in a world where being an all-in brawler isn't the greatest thing. Like, it could be okay when you have other brawlers with you, but the problem with Mr. Fantastic is that there's so many characters that get a ton of value from range, and he doesn't really have a great means to force an engage and then disengage from that engage. Yes, he can jump in, but even when he gets big, he can be focused down, he could be ran away from, and his ultimate is also pretty lackluster where he could just die. There are going to be Mr. Fantastics that really succeed with him at high levels, and he can often play as an extension of team pressure to really either like snowball a fight or mitigate like opponent team pressure. So there's a lot of really cool things you could do with him, and I do think that he's actually a really solid anti-meta pick, but he definitely has to work a bit harder than many of the top DPS to get consistent value. And I also do think that he can struggle against triple support as well. A really strong character overall, and also I do think gets a bit better on console as well. Not incredibly mechanically demanding, and when the peak aim skill of some players is a little bit lower, I do think he shines a bit more, so you'd probably bump him up a tier. But all in all, I'll put him in the C tier at the very top. Now, the last character in the C tier, I have Storm, a character that should be good on paper, but isn't really succeeding all that much. Number one, the Jeff Storm team up is okay. Like, the synergy is actually fine, but players have become a lot better at either spreading or killing the Storm Jeff ult, which means that it's not just a free I'm gonna win the game or I'm gonna win the fight mode anymore. It's one of those things that can win under optimal conditions, but in some cases it doesn't do enough. Players, change their elevation, you can't chase them, or you get Luna ulted into Punisher ulted and just get murdered, both of y'all. So there are ways to definitely counter it directly. On top of that, just Storm suffers from not really just moving. Like, one of the reasons that Torch is so strong is that he has this movement tech that just makes him impossible to hit, while at the same time outputting consistent pressure. Storm also outputs consistent pressure and increases the pressure of your team, but she's vulnerable. She's squishy. She's easy to shoot. She can't really move that much in the air. And now, if you gave Storm a movement tech, all of a sudden we'd be talking about her like we're talking about Torch. But under her current, situation, in the current way she is, she's too easy to target for Helas and Jeans to kill. Even Psylocke can murder her. Other Torches can blitz her, and she can be the one that gets picked off in a composition. So there are going to be times where she really thrives in a hyper-potent composition where she can be heavily protected. But in a lot of cases, you would rather be pocketing a different character than Storm and not making her the center of your comp. Now, blitzing through the B tier, there are a lot of characters in the B tier that I think are just all around good in the right hands, in the right situations. And the bottom is Black Panther. Black Panther did receive a nerf. He also received a complimentary buff to his new synergy with Hulk, which really is nice, but doesn't really change that much about him. Neither does his nerf to him. Like, yes, he's not quite as healthy, and he's gonna survive less against small things, but most of the time, if you caught the BP, he'd die anyways. You're still able to one-shot, you're still able to blitz people, you're still able to catch people off guard. The Black Panthers that were really skilled, that knew their matchups and knew to engage properly, are still going to succeed here until the opponents swap off. And BP is one of those characters that forces enemies to make the appropriate changes to you. If you have a composition with no crowd control, no triple support, you're just going to get feasted on by a really great Black Panther. But the second you swap to Bucky, swap to Namor, swap to triple DPS Ultron, BP is useless, like actually useless. If you can hit a single uppercut, or you could throw a squid, or you can press your ability to trigger overshield on your drone, BP is useless. So he really gets to blitz and win fights, and then he gets to consistently win fights until opponents decide to hard swap and counter you. Of course, if you're not good at BP, you're gonna just not be even able to force the counter swap. But if you try to play BP into the counters, it becomes so hard for you. Even the best BPs in the world struggle. He's really like, if we talk about rock, paper, scissors in a hero shooter, he's basically the personification of rock, paper, scissors as a hero because, you know, he has things he destroys and he gets destroyed by something as well. Now, next up is Moon Knight. I did talk about how I think Moon Knight is just like the better version of Squirrel Girl. Once again, a character that if you leave him alone, he just gets to constantly apply pressure, win team fights with his ultimate, kill through defensive ultimates, and now he's better at dueling divers a bit now with that second charge on his alternate fire, and Moon Knight is just in a good place. I think he's pretty healthy right now, and if you're ever up against hyper tanks, a ton of tanks, you know, bunker with Peni, anything like that, Moon Knight is really, really gonna shine, but he's still gonna struggle with characters that want to chase after him and target him. Characters like Thor, characters like Psylocke, characters like Magik, but I think he has better tools to deal with those things than someone like Squirrel Girl does by a mile, and his upside's actually higher. So I think Moon Knight is just the character to be playing right now if you want to play that kind of character. After that is Blade, and Blade did get a damage buff here, and Blade has finally kind of broken through that threshold of not being a bottom tier character anymore. He's a reasonable all-around character in the right spots, and I just think he's a good character in general, and there's a lot of things going for him. He doesn't have the best damage in the world, but he makes up for that lack of damage with two things. One, a crazy amount of survivability. I mean, this guy has 350 health with the ability to shield almost anything and survive, and 2 dashes, so you're just not gonna die. Like, if you don't make a crazy amount of mistakes, you won't die on Blade, and you have a really, really powerful ultimate that can just win fights in its own right. So great ultimate combined with powerful survivable tools equals a character that it doesn't really matter if you have like great offensive capabilities. And honestly, his offensive capabilities are not zero. If he hits people with his gun, his silver bullet, y'all can focus and kill him. He can engage on isolated targets really well. And now with a little bit more damage, he's gonna get a little bit more lifesteal. So I think Blade's in a good spot. He's actually, I would say, even in a great spot for Blade mains. But I don't think he crosses that threshold to just be one of the characters that gets a lot of free value like in the A or S tier. You still have to work for everything you get. You have to ult well, you have to have good timing, you have to know your limits, but he gives you everything you need to be able to, you know, be that low death character that has these playmaking, hyper carrying moments where you're killing through a defensive ult or you're wiping enemy backlines. Just a really all-around solid character that I gotta put in the B tier here. Next up in the B tier, though, is Iron Man, a character that I think some people are sleeping on a bit. I think they think that this character is unplayable or bad or whatever, but really, Iron Man has a lot going for him. Number one, he's good against hyper tank compositions. Number two, he's good against triple support. You can still kill through defensive ults. You can be this uncontested character that is constantly shooting down, and you're actually good against characters like Human Torch. Yes, Iron Man actually has an advantage in that matchup because you get to decide when to pop your overshield and get that overshield where Torch actually has to slam on the ground to do it. And if in the mirror you don't know what to play against the Torch that's being pocketed, the Iron Man Ultron duo oftentimes will overcome the Torch Ultron duo in the head-to-head, which is kind of cool. Now, the hardest part about this character is finding moments where you can get definitive value with your ult, because there's so many things that can interrupt. You could get shot, you can get juggled by Hulk, you could get CC'd. So I think coordination and calling for Magneto bubbles really go a long way here. But if you can do these things, if you can kind of put in a lot of resources into Iron Man, he could be the catalyst to win you the game. And in a very similar way, the next character up on this list is Punisher, a character that I think is very, very similar in the fact that Punisher is a character that is best enabled by a team, and through Punisher can you win team fights, because when Punisher pops ult, he needs a lot. He needs shields, he needs heals, sometimes he needs an ultimate to go alongside him, he needs mag shield, strange shield, mag bubble. He needs to be protected, because if he is, he can kill through a lot of defensive ults, and he can shred tanks, and he can be your win condition. So when someone's your win condition, whether that's Iron Man or whether that's Punisher, they need to be like kind of all in enabled to get the full value out of them. And you might be saying, okay, Mills, that seems like a bad thing, that there are characters that require that to be successful, but not really, because other characters, you could put your all into them and they might not win you the team. They might not win you the game or the fight. Like, you could give every resource to a Scarlet Witch, she might not win you the team fight, but a Punisher can and will, and an Iron Man can as well. So similar type of characters where they can be that team's win condition. When you need a consistent route to winning team fights, the whole plan revolves around them. Now at the top of the B tier, we have Hawkeye, a character that should be great in this meta, but is only just good simply due to the fact that Hawkeye is really, really hard for players to play at a high enough level. Like, I actually think that Hawkeye requires some of the highest levels of mechanical skill in the game, where if you are just playing Hawkeye at like an okay level where you're just kind of spamming from range and hitting body shots, you're not able to carry like, you know, Phoenix or Hela. But if you're able to consistently hit headshots, hit the hard mechanical shots, this is a character that forces you to swap to counter him. It's almost similar to BP in a way where if you do not swap to counter or pressure the Hawkeye, you will straight up lose to a great mechanical Hawkeye. Like, if you're not really off-angling and trying to shoot him down, you're not diving him, you're not pressuring him as a tank, you're not basically preventing the amount of shots he gets to take throughout a game and constantly poking him and pressuring him or killing him when he's out of position, you will straight up lose to him. He's one of those raid boss style characters that if he's good enough, he makes the entire game about stopping him, and that's kind of your job. So it's really dependent on the Hawkeye, because there are some Hawkeyes you give them 20 seconds to hit a shot and they will not hit it. And there are other Hawkeyes that if you leave them alone for 5 seconds, they're killing one of your supports. So it really depends on the tier of skill of that Hawkeye, but he's a character that has the capability of being a raid boss. It's just most of the time it doesn't actualize into that, because I do think that he's just really, really mechanically hard to get that consistent amount of skill. Not only is it just like very, very precise aim that just requires good mechanics overall, but it's also very unique to Hawkeye, where there's really no transfer between other characters. Like Jean and Hela have, you know, perfect crossover mechanically. There is nothing that perfectly crossovers to Hawkeye. He's pretty much like unique to him. So if you want to be good at him, you have to play only him. But if you're really, really great at him, you can definitely succeed. Now, moving up to the A tier, these are top tier DPS that the entire meta is revolving around. They're very strong, they're very good. If they have certain synergies or under certain conditions, that's when they're really, really dominant, but they're just good all the time in general. It's just that's when they truly shine. And at the bottom of this is Namor. He's at the bottom of A tier because when he has the Hulk team up, he really, really shines, but when he doesn't, he is not really played. Like, you don't really play a Namor without the Hulk team up. So yeah, he's pretty contingent on having a Hulk and ideally having a good Hulk in order to make him really, really good. But, you know, he's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. It's just really that extra squid just changes everything about his gameplay loop, his burst potential. It makes it so you don't really have to conserve squids. And then he gets to be this really strong either off-angler or even flanker or a dive mitigator. So those are all really good options. I still do think that he struggles against the hyper meta compositions centered around something like Torch or something like Jean or triple support. But against most compositions, Namor Hulk is gonna just destroy it. It's so good in 2-2-2, in a 2-2-2 mirror, or when enemies are playing triple DPS, Namor could just basically force any enemy to fight him, and then he gets to bubble himself away while simultaneously killing them with squids. It's just really, really good overall and requires a lot of counter pressure. Now, next in the A tier is Wolverine, a character that is still really, really good. Like, Wolverine is still really good. Yes, he has tanks that he's not that great against, but really, Wolverine's just good against most tanks in the game. He has great brawling potential because he does so much damage. He has the ability to take people off the map or back to his team with the rocket boost jump. And his ultimate's one of the best ultimates in the DPS roster, capable of taking people like out of an invis ult and killing them. Wolverine is just really, really strong, really survivable, and in the hands of someone really skilled, he could be amazing, but it's gonna depend on the comp. Like, if you're up against two tanks that are hard for you to scoop, like Emma and Mag, and then you're up against a DPS that can zone you away, or you'll never be able to grab, you know, someone like Torch, someone like Psylocke, someone like Jean, and then triple support, you feel useless. Like, there are comps that you feel useless into, but there are characters that you also just force them off of. You could force them off of Groot. You can force them off of Strange. So all around, I do think that Wolverine is still extremely powerful. It's just that some players are good at swapping to counter you, but he is probably one of the characters that you have to swap around the most to deny him, because if you play into his strengths, you will lose fight after fight to this character because he can really make the entire game about him. Then next in the A tier, we actually have Star-Lord, a character that I think is actually one of the best DPS in one of the best comps. I did talk about the Venom, Jeff the Shark, Star-Lord comp earlier, but when Star-Lord has follow-up, like something to enable him, this could be a Magneto bubble, this could be a Venom dive, this could be Jeff the Shark boosting you in, whatever it is, Star-Lord can get a ton of value. He's a really great character to play with a coordinated lineup because he can kind of attack from any direction. He's pretty hard to kill. He can contribute to pretty much any fight. He can add a lot of pressure to a dive, and he's also good at anti-dive. Like, he's a pretty good all-around character. Plus, he has an ultimate that is one of the best ultimates in the DPS slot, because even if they pop defensive ults, if enemies are split, he can still get kills anyways. And yes, Star-Lord is just a really, really great character, but his main weakness is he can get pressured by some of the best characters in the game. I think really his only bad matchups are against characters that can burst him down from range or duel him. So characters like Hela and Jean can be frustrating to play against. Psylocke can be frustrating to play against. But in a coordinated setting, that matters less, and you could still leverage what Star-Lord brings to the table. And I do think in ranked play, if your aim, your tracking is good, you can absolute hard carry on this character. But I do see some of his flaws come in through the head-to-head with some of the top-tier characters, but he's only being kept in check by those characters, and he doesn't get as consistent, easy value as those characters do, but he's still really solid all around. Now, these last two A-tier characters could easily be S-tier depending on the situation, and they're really, really strong all around, but they don't dictate the meta as quite as much as S-tier, but they can in the right game, so keep that in mind. First is Bucky. Bucky got a new ability where if he uppercuts you, you can't use movement abilities, which is crazy. It changes his matchup with Magik, with Black Panther, with Psylocke, who can no longer dash away. Basically, if this guy catches you, you're dead. And he's so good against anything with mobility. He just is the great dive destroyer. If you're playing dive, a dive DPS, you always have to stay like 7 feet or more away from the freaking Bucky, because he will get you with that uppercut and you will just die to a follow-up shot every single time. So he's a character that just strikes fear into the hearts of hypermobility characters. And the only reason that Bucky can't be an S-tier dominant character, it's kind of similar to Star-Lord, but for different reasons. Bucky is just bad against long-distance pokers. He's just bad against Hela. He's just bad against Jean. He's not good at fighting characters that can outrange him, because all of his power in his kit comes from his ability to fight in close range. Even this buff that he just got, from his ability to fight at close ranges and hit people with an uppercut. Characters that fight him from far away, that he can't contest in an equal amount of damage away because he has a projectile weapon that shoots rather slow, he is going to lose that fight every single time. So when people play hyper-optimized meta with really, really good mechanical characters, or they're playing something like triple support where Bucky doesn't really play particularly well into that composition unless there's someone he can hook into his team, and they have to make pretty bad mistakes for that to happen, Bucky struggles, but against pretty much every other nonsense, and in most situations, he thrives. And in a lot of cases, players can't really aim all that well on Helas and Jeans until the upper elos of, like, PC play. So in most other situations, Bucky is the raid boss. And I think probably on console, and probably in, like, 95% of elos, Bucky is S tier. But for high level and pro play, he's not. So it's a weird character to place, but he is like the character that you want to pick up if you are tired of nonsense. If you're tired of people running it down on you, like with Black Panther. If you're tired of Spider-Man's randomly. If you're tired of like random freaking, whether it's a Wolverine, a Magik, whatever, he's gonna be able to shut all that down. But keep in mind that in absolute hard meta, he does struggle a bit. The last up in the A tier, we have Magik. Once again, a character that could easily be S tier. She does almost enter that S tier range when she has the Strange team up. That's when she's truly going crazy. She's such a strong character. But there are some weaknesses to the character. While she's really good at combo killing, she's really good at just kind of, you know, comboing off, whether she's brawling on a front line, building up a ton of health, and then going into a dive, or just diving the back line, or killing supports. You can do all these things, but you have to work pretty hard no matter what you're doing. No matter what you're trying to accomplish, you still have to physically cross through the open space. You have to get in close. You have to get value and then get out. And that can be hard up against characters like in the S tier that just don't really have to play with that same level of risk to get the same amount of value. Hela and Jean, Torch, none of these characters have to really risk anything to get free value. When Magik does have to risk, she has to go, she has to engage to get the value. She's really strong though. I don't want to undercut her strength because she can make a whole game about her. And if you're good enough on this character, I think you can carry almost any lobby you're in, especially with the team up. But she doesn't quite reach the level of the S tier characters as far as how much free value they can get from range. I say free, but I mean, you're aiming, right? But it doesn't cost you anything to aim. You don't have to risk your life to aim. You can stand in the back and aim. You don't have to, you know, put yourself body to body with someone that could stun you in order to aim at them and shoot them, right? So that's the difference. And I do think Magik is still really good though, by the way. So don't think I'm sleeping on her. She's just really, really dominant, especially with Strange. But I think these S tier is gonna be more dominant than her. And at the bottom of S tier, we have Hela. Hela is back in some ways. Hela is actually performing fairly well right now. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think the biggest one right now is the fact that Psylocke did get a bit weaker. And we're seeing that Hela actually has reasonable game up against Jean. And she has okay game up against Torch. Not great if Torch gets Ultron, but if you ban something like Ultron, you force them off a triple support, especially that pocket, the Ultron pocket, Hela can be really, really good. And having a character that can beat the Psylocks, can beat the Jeans, can contest the Torches, and is just a character that just provides a lot of raw one-on-one value potential, is gonna be an S tier potential pick when you have the best of the best aim. Like, if you're in a duel with a Hela and a Jean, the Hela has the advantage almost every time if y'all are of equal skill in a 1v1 duel, and the Hela is just going to try to force that duel over and over and over again. Now, a Jean gets more value from almost every other part of her kit, from her mobility to her HP regen, to her higher HP, to her body shot, just getting value with body shots, to her ultimate combos. But when there's a character that is forcing 1v1s and making the entire game about 1v1s, Hela gets the advantage here. And there's more room for her to kind of creep into the meta in the right hands. And keep in mind, this is only at the top levels of play. But it is important to not completely disregard Hela this meta, because Hela is a character that has such high potential to just dominate and really just carry a lobby like no one else if you got the aim to back her up. Now, you know, the top three are the same big three that we've seen. Yes, Psylocke is weaker, but she's still insane, especially when you have the Emma team up. But even without it, a character that can burst enemies down, has a great ultimate, can basically attack from any position, can set up and stage for free because she can go invisible. Yeah, there's just so much to like about Psylocke. She's also so good at contesting many of the frustrating characters in rank that demand to be contested. You know, characters like Moon Knight, characters like Squirrel Girl, Hawkeye as an example. But really, I want to say that in ranked, especially if you're good enough, Psylocke can carry so many games that other characters can't. She can just be that consistent raid boss. Even with these nerfs to the character, she's still so phenomenal. Yes, she is noticeably weaker. It's not weaker enough to make her bad or out of the S tier or out of the top 3 characters in the game. She's still that good. Now, I did mention Jean and Torch. Torch is a bit hard because he like almost always gets banned, but like Torch triple support is just one of the most oppressive comps in the game, because especially if you have a Torch and an Ultron pocket, you can't interact with it in any real way. Like, it doesn't matter how many shots you hit on that person, unless you hit like 2 crits in a row followed by team pressure, you're just not killing him because he's getting consistent pocket. So you almost have to mirror it with the Torch of your own. And if you ever have to do that, in retrospect, you almost always lose because the Torch that knows the techs and knows how to play will always beat the Torch that doesn't. So yeah, it's just like a frustrating, weird mini game that you have to play that like most of the time people just say, nah, we're banning Torch. And that's just why Torch gets banned. It's such a high volume, and it's rightfully so. Now, I do understand that depending on the rank you're in, you might not understand why that's necessary, because you're hardly ever getting 2 supports, much less needing, like, having a triple support Ultron pocket. But I promise you, when players see the free win in front of them, they see that Torch open, they see that Torch that's good, they know that if they go triple support, they can just pocket the Ultron and win a free game. They do it, and it's a frustrating thing to deal with. So, you know, if you are the Torch differ, then try to convince your team not to ban it, and maybe you'll let it through sometimes. But most of the time, just ban that motherfucker. Just ban him. And then Jean is just the most overkitted, all-around good DPS of all time, capable of carrying so many games. You have the best combo in the game with Magneto ult into Jean ult that can kill through any defensive ults, breaks all the barriers with Jean ult, gets them to 1 HP, Magneto ult finishes them off. You have a character that gets rewarded for headshots, gets rewarded for body shots, has a great mobility, has 275 HP, can regenerate HP by triggering her fire, which you just get to do, not even hitting hard shots because you can just hit headshots. You also have a movement melee tech where you can just like melee to trigger a fire into the flight, cancel into the primary, that if you hit a headshot, it will trigger the fire and light everyone on fire, and then you can repeat it over and over again like you're a freaking spinning top. And that means you can brawl better than like a lot of brawlers. The character is so freaking insane, to the point where I think really, if you don't really know what to ban, if Torch is banned, I think that she's like number 2 on the ban list. Like, it's like Torch at number 1, and then she's number 2, even above Emma. I think Emma's worthy of a ban still. I think you could ban a lot of things, but Jean is up there. If you're not playing this character, I really do think that you should ban her a lot of times, because that's just how strong she is. She's just all around such a powerhouse, and in the hands of someone that's semi-competent can carry a lobby. So yeah, definitely a character that if you haven't picked up, you should, if you're someone that can aim. And if you're not gonna play her, you should probably ban her. Now, last but certainly not least, all we gotta talk about is supports. And this one is the strangest one so far, because right now we've entered a very interesting triple support meta. And you might be like, okay, Mills, triple support, really? How is that interesting? But there are so many different combinations of triple support that are reasonably good, that mean that a lot of supports are just viable. And the supports that are mostly good are just kind of like all squished up together, all in about the same tier, and it's hard to differentiate them in any reasonable way. So I'm gonna put nothing in the F, D, or C tier, because almost every single support is viable in the right situation. But of course, the top 2 best supports are far and away better. They do stand out, so we will talk about those specifically. But for the most part, the power level of all the supports are rather high, and they're all playable. And in a lot of cases, they're just gonna be better than just playing a second DPS. Now, at the bottom is actually Rocket, and I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, Mills, what the hell? Why is Rocket at the bottom? His win rate's high, whatever. I do think that Rocket is actually a good character with a reasonably high win rate, because he gets a lot of value even when someone doesn't know perfectly how to play Rocket. He gets a lot of value just right-clicking. He gets a lot of value just kind of existing. He doesn't die very much because he has good mobility, and he makes up for a lot of teammates' mistakes in the fact that you can res somebody. You win a lot of fights just from that alone, and you don't even realize it. So all this is really good, and it means that if you have a person that is not good at support, you would rather them be on Rocket than pretty much any other character. Not to say that you can't become good or amazing at Rocket, it's just that he has the lowest value floor and skill floor out of pretty much any other support. That being said, he's at the bottom, even though it's all the way up in B tier, so it's still pretty good for these 2 reasons. Number 1, he doesn't fit great in any triple support comp. You would almost always rather play a different support with either a powerful ultimate or better utility. And the second thing is that his defensive ult, his Rocket ult, is the weakest one by far out of pretty much all of them, with the exception of Mantis. But you got to consider that Mantis is someone that can contribute to team damage and Rocket cannot, so she just fits better in a lot of triple support comps where Rocket does not. So that's really why he's here, even though he's still a reasonable all-around character. And then the character above him is Ultron, and Ultron is insane. I actually do think that Ultron is one of the best triple support supports in the game. Really strong, really good at counter dive, really good at pocketing and enabling, and just honestly flat out good. A stat monster, can get crazy final blows, can get crazy damage, can get crazy heals. In the start of a fight with triple support and 2 tanks, you can put your drone directly on whatever tank's going to take the most amount of damage and build up an ult faster than the enemy team builds up ults, so you can go really fast and kill the enemy before they build defensive ults. Or you can use it with your team pressure to bait out something like a Luna ult, and then you can, you know, just be able to trade your other 2 ults better. The main reason that he's here is because he's really only playable ever in triple. Like, yeah, you could probably get away doing it in double when, like, you're just better as a team, but the reality of it is he's not really a support that was made or is really designed or capable of playing in just 2 supports. That's really not his best place, to the point where I just don't really recommend it at all to play him in only 2 supports. I do recommend swapping one of your DPS to Ultron when you don't feel like you're getting consistent value, you don't know how to help your backline. Ultron creates stability to your backline, still has consistent damage-based pressure, has a really strong ultimate. I really do think that in most situations, he's going to be a better second DPS. Like, he's just going to be better. Now, in the A tier, this tier is stacked. Like, there's like so many characters in the A tier, but they're all good, and it all depends on the situation. So, yeah, take that with what you will. First off, in the A tier, we have Loki, and I want to put to bed this conversation like Loki is just unplayable now. Like, he's terrible. Like, you can't get value out of him. You need to understand that Loki still, undisputedly, has the most powerful ability cooldown in the game. The totem cooldown that makes it so that you can absorb any amount of damage until the totems are destroyed and can heal up your tanks to full very quickly is the singular most powerful cooldown in the game. And having that on a character that can go invisible, teleport, and still provide reasonable heals and reasonable damage is really good. Also, you just get a second one of whatever your best ultimate is. That's also super good. I do understand that he's quite a bit weaker than he was before. He's not so weak that he's terrible now. Like, he was so strong before. Like, leagues above almost every other character in the game. And now he's just good. Like, he's good, but he's not like busted anymore. He's just good. And that's a fine place for Loki to be. It still puts him in the A tier with the company of all these other supports. Now, there are going to be slightly more situations where you would rather play him with triple support, right? But I do think that he still works reasonably well with 2 supports. Like, Luna Loki is still a really, really good backline. You still get double Luna ultimate, which is still a good ultimate even at 10 seconds. And the capability of damage boosting and trying to create combos with it. And Loki still makes up for a lot of your weaknesses when it comes to dive. Like, a character that can totem and keep you alive, teleport, keep himself alive, is still going to be better than a support that's dead, which a lot of them will be. And being able to play something like Luna, Mantis, Loki kind of being able to provide a lot of utility and also damage-based pressure, all good. So Loki's still good. He's still an A tier pick. He's still really solid. Don't completely disregard him because he's still great. Now, next up in the A tier is actually Adam Warlock, a real big all-star right now. Once again, mainly played in triple support. There are some times where you could get away playing like Adam Luna. I think if you were playing like solo tank as an example, solo tank mag, a tank that's not going to take a lot of damage, it could be fine. And you give Luna that really powerful team up with Adam. That's great. But of course, this is going to shine the best when you're playing triple. Of course it is. And I think that the best triple support backline with the right team around it, I did talk about it earlier, Adam, Luna, Jeff with like a Venom and a Mag. The reason that this is so good is because you get the Adam Luna team up, then you get Adam Soul Bond, then you get Jeff Venom team up, which is like a mini Soul Bond. You get Jeff ult, which can provide some sustain for you and potentially get picks. You also have Luna ult, which is still powerful and can be damage boosted with Venom ult. You still have Adam that can just apply a lot of pressure, plus res your team. And it turns out when you res characters like Star-Lord, like Jeff, like Venom, they can re-hit and re-engage and flip a fight or pull out of a fight and re-engage into a fight. It could be really, really strong. You could res further away than you otherwise would and then walk forward, get them alive. They can engage into the fight. It's just really good all around. And you have plenty of heals. And that's kind of where this triple support is kind of interesting right now, is because you can't play triple support with just 3 supports that only or primarily heal. Like, you can't do triple support, Cloak, Luna, Invis. Not only is it really hard for y'all to get support ults, but you just don't provide enough damage so you can never kill anything that's out of position. You can never kill a tank that's out of position. So you need to fill it with things that do damage, some combination, and Jeff and Adam just complement Luna really well. So that's kind of where Adam fits in, is that he can also just be played in like a random triple support. It could be like Cloak, Adam, Invis, Cloak, Adam, Mantis, Cloak, Adam, Loki, Cloak, Adam, Rocket if you really want. Like, you could do whatever you want. He's just going to play best in triple, where his damage-based value makes up for the lack of it in the DPS category. And for those of you who are wondering why triple support is like this amazing busted thing, it's kind of for the same reason that Mag is. It turns out that Mag is stacked with powerful defensive abilities and cooldowns, and taking away a bit of your damage pressure for more defensive abilities and cooldowns makes your composition more sustainable, more survivable, better able to deal with many of the really powerful threats in the game, and that's typically better. Yes, you're reducing your damage output, but as long as you supplement your DPS with some other supports that can still contribute, like a Mantis, like a Jeff, like an Adam, then you're not losing all of it entirely, and you still have enough kill power, but you're gaining really powerful defensive utility in a very similar way that Mag has to deny what the enemy team is doing, and that's just more valuable in general right now in Rivals. So that's kind of why triple support is seeing the most play. Now, we do got to talk about Jeff the Shark, where I think that Jeff is actually really good. Like, he's really, really good. Yes, still best in triple support, but you can get away with playing him in two supports. His ultimate is just making him way better. Being able to leave a little bit of sustain behind for your team lets them live when you're gone, which is really important, because if you popped your ultimate, scooped up 2 people and killed yourself, but then you couldn't heal your 1 HP team, you just lose the fight anyways. Now, no longer the case. Jeff also can speed boost your team out of spawn, speed boost your team into the fight, speed boost the Star-Lord spin in, and he can also heal people from really dynamic ranges. And there's a lot of characters that have a lot of trouble killing Jeff, like case in point, Magik. Very frustrating for a Magik to deal with a Jeff. A lot of hit scan characters can't really kill a Jeff very easily either. So a character that has an offensive ult, but can still keep their team alive, gets to heal their team, provide extra bits of utility to their team, and is a good player to fit into a triple support, providing both offensive and defensive value. Jeff is a great pick right now, and he's actually A tier, which is just crazy that small change to his ultimate really pushed him over the edge, but it really did. It made him very, very good. I don't cry when I see a Jeff on my team. I actually am happy. I do prefer him with triple support, and he's better with triple support for sure. Next up on the A tier is actually Invisible Woman. A lot of people might have suspected that I would put her higher, and there's a reason why I don't. Still, Luna and Cloak ult are better than Invisible Woman ult still, because Invisible Woman ult doesn't last as long, or doesn't create ability for you to damage boost combo through. Like, Luna can just do it with the damage boost. Cloak can set up it with her blind. Invisible Woman can't. Yes, she does pocket well, and she does provide playmaking capabilities, but the buff to her ultimate alone isn't enough to separate it so far ahead of the other defensive ults, and those characters still provide great utility as well. And I do think that also there's just a lot of ways to kill through Invis ult that it's harder to do with Cloak, specifically because Cloak can fade afterwards and fade her team, so it just makes her harder to kill. Luna just gets so much overhealth, and she's crowd control resistant, so those things just make it a little bit easier to deal with Invisible Woman over them, and the upside's not as high. Still though, Invisible Woman provides tons of healing, good interrupts, whether it's Angela kidnapping or Wolverine kidnapping, and playmaking potential, pushing people off the map or helping to aid a team in like a duel or someone in an isolated duel. Those are all good things about Invisible Woman, but for the most part, I do think that Invisible Woman does suffer somewhat. And last up in the A tier, we have Mantis. I think Mantis is so good right now in triple support because she provides so much offensive capabilities. Just being able to roam around, apply a lot of pressure, make plays with her sleep from range, canceling ultimates, damage boosting whoever she needs to and enabling them, but then also just being able to make plays herself and having an ultimate that just lets you kind of turn a fight. Like, yes, you're not going to be able to survive through a ton of things with Mantis ult, but that's not the purpose of it. You're trying to find a way to kind of poke a hole in the enemy's defenses, force out an ultimate or re-engage after an ultimate ends. Mantis is just a great character all around right now, and she's so good in triple support. She synergizes really well with Groot as well if you wanted to play a triple support Groot comp, but also any dive, aggressive comp, poke comp she plays really well into because she pokes well. So she's just a good all-around triple support character. I think that's where she's at is her best, but she can be played in double support as well, depending on the comp you're playing. I probably wouldn't play double support with the Mantis if your comp is taking too much damage overall because you don't have a ton of burst heals. But in a, you know, poke light, maybe you were playing like a double shield comp, then you could probably get away with it. Now, in the S tier, surprising no one, we have Luna and Cloak as the top two. Why are they the top two? Well, basically, you want to pretty much run one of these two in almost every triple support composition, and they are also the best in duo supports as well. And there's several reasons for that. For Cloak being the best, mainly comes down to the fact that Cloak just gets to have the longest lasting ultimate, and Cloak actually provides a lot in the form of utility. Being able to blind enemies, combo kill them, kill through defensive ultimates is great. Cloak as a whole, just the Cloak fade as a whole is really good. It's one of the only ways to stop the Phoenix Magneto combo is by fading through it. And you also provide quite a bit of damage and you help confirm kills. So there's a lot there that just consistent heals, good utility, good ultimate, fast building ultimate, all that's great. Luna is still good because while her ultimate doesn't last the longest anymore, it's still the hardest to kill, right? It's really hard to kill because she has so much health and she's CC immune. And it's the best to enable a combo. So whether you're using a Namor Whale, whether you're using a Phoenix ult, whether you're swapping the damage so that your Groot can kill through. There's a lot of ways to use damage boost to be that decider in a team fight, and Luna being able to do that while at the same time just being able to output a lot of damage and healing from range. Clap is really good at actually killing DPS from range too, and she has an amazing synergy with Adam. I think them together as like the building block of a triple support is super, super powerful. So yeah, Luna, really, really good. Definitely deserving of S tier. I do think that Cloak edges it out in a lot more situations, but when played perfectly optimally, trying to combo damage boost with something to kill defensive ultimates, I think Luna does edge it out. Now, I know that you might be kind of freaking out about this triple support meta, but I actually think that there is some fun to be had with triple support in general because of the many flavors of it. The fact that you can play triple support with Adams and Mantises and Jeffs and Ultrons, and there's so much like trying to kill through defensive ultimates happening. I think that this triple support meta is different from previous ones where it's just about trying to cycle these infinite I'm gonna never die ultimates. That's not really what this triple support comps are about anymore. It's not about never dying. It's about just providing you more defensive options in the fight, but when well executed, everything is still dying, and you're not just sitting through Luna, Loki, non-stop, just everyone stalling. You're actually using these ultimates to set up plays to kill through enemy defensive ults or just be your win condition. And I think there's enough variety there that if you're not afraid to play some supports, you're not afraid to whip out that Ultron, that freaking Adam, that freaking Mantis, that Jeff, you're gonna have a good time in this meta. So don't be too afraid of it. It is really strong and powerful, and I think there's a lot of fun to be had. But anyways, let me know how you feel about this meta in the comments down below. Smash that like, subscribe if you agree, disagree, whatever. I still need that likes. Come on, bro. Just help a man out. It's a 2-hour video. I don't know actually how long this video is, but definitely let me know if you disagree. Comments down below. Thank you so much for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.